Morning, everyone. Yes, we're like not even a week into the general election campaign, and it doesn't seem to be going well for the Conservatives. I just want to sort of recap a few things here. So, last Wednesday, we had the launch itself. So, we had the Things Can Only Get Wetter launch. Then later on, they were recorded chucking out a Sky News journalist from a launch event, indicating that they wanted to so carefully stage manage everything that they don't even want journalists seeing what they're doing. Then on the first proper day of campaigning, you had Tory councillors disguising themselves as factory workers in that Q&A deception of the public, showing that they were both dishonest and scared of the public. You had the Welsh brewery gaffe. We had the visit to the home of the Titanic. This is just the edited highlights, by the way. There was other things as well. After the first couple of days proper, went so badly that they had to have a day off to have meetings and discuss what they were going to do next. Then they announced their national service plan, which is basically slavery. Which didn't even get much support on the right wing. So you had loads of right wing commentators falling over themselves to say how ridiculous this plan was. You had Tory MPs coming out just being really mad at the election that's caught them all by surprise. There's some MPs who wanted another half a year of MP's salary and time to find another job. You had some MPs who wanted to get their own campaign sorted because they actually still want to be MPs after the election, but are probably going to lose. You had yesterday, it turned out, so at CCHQ, they've been compiling a list of Tory candidates that are being a bit lazy. They're not getting on message, although to be fair to them, what is the message? The message keeps changing. But anyway, they're complaining that they're not really getting on board with the campaign. Some of them are not even going out door knocking. So they compiled this list and then they emailed out this list of criticisms of Tory candidates to the Tory candidates themselves. So that was a bit embarrassing. There were extra suggestions yesterday. Dawn Butler was sort of again pushing this idea that has been doing the rounds for a while, that the only reason we're having this election now is because there was Tory MPs really were getting ready to put letters in to trigger a confidence vote. Sunak got wind of it and thought, right, I'll just trigger the election. Now, bear in mind, about a month, after when it came to the local elections, and there was talk of this just before the local election, if they're really bad, the letters may go in. And one of Sunak's team did actually suggest, well, if they do that, we'll just call the election early. And it caused a huge backlash. And you had loads of those on the far right, some of whom are not really even in the Conservative Party, going, oh, this is disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. You had like the Nadine Dorries, who is in the Conservative Party, of course, Nadine Dorries and people like that going, oh, no, we'll if he even tries it, we'll have him replaced before he can even get to the gates of Buckingham Palace. And I was trying to say, there's nothing they can do. There's absolutely nothing they can do. Parliament is sovereign in this country. But Parliament can also use its sovereignty to reduce its sovereignty. So Parliament chooses to allow the Prime Minister to call an election, effectively. The King technically calls it, but they allow the Prime Minister to ask the King to do that. So there's nothing Parliament could do about it. It would have been different with the Fixed Terms Parliament Act, but if we had the Fixed Terms Parliament Act, we'd have had the election on May the 2nd, so it doesn't matter. So there's nothing. But anyway, it caused a backlash. And then Downing Street had to say, no, we wouldn't do this at all. No, we wouldn't do this. So now it turns out maybe they actually have. Maybe they did get wind of the letters going in. And that is why Sunak called the election really quickly, which is why it caught everyone on the hop. Remember, David Cameron, who is a close confidant of Rishi Sunak, like it is not keeping particular secrets from him. David Cameron was brought into the government to try and take the load off Rishi Sunak in certain areas. So basically be like a second leader, proper leader. And he was out of the country. So he had to come back from a major event. So it was definitely all done on the rush without anyone really being told. So it adds credibility to it. But anyway, that's what we're up to now. Then last night we have a Tory MP defects for to Reform UK this time, that was all very messy as well. And just to finish it off, the Tories still need to find 150 candidates, which is about a quarter. About 1 in 4 of all the seats that the Conservatives normally challenge, they haven't got a candidate for. The deadline's next Friday, I think. It's next Friday, isn't it? The deadline, 7th of June, I believe. Absolutely mad. Maggie Pye saying the Tories having a leadership contest at the same time as the general election campaign would have been glorious to watch. Yeah, even they're not that crazy, although, they don't really seem to have limits of insanity at the moment. Maybe the Tory plan is to improve the morale of the country by the amount of schadenfreude caused by this campaign. Well, I am actually just going to say there is a danger in all this as well. There is a danger. And that is that because it is going so badly and because the polls are so bad, people go, oh, that's it. They're finished. This is going to be Canada 1993 wipeout, which is possible. For those who don't know, in Canada 1993, the Conservative government there ended up not even being a party anymore. They ended up with 2 seats. They were it was like it was an absolute beast. I don't think there may not have been anything like it in modern democratic history. The actual party of government being literally obliterated. They don't exist anymore. Johnny Cobb had £10 super chat. Thank you. It says Mel Stride was funny on BBC this morning. Yeah, I saw a bit of that. Going on about their latest wizard weaves for pensioners. For those who don't know, there's now going to be a quadruple lock. They're also going to say state pension. I think, well, actually, it seems a bit confused, but they seem to be suggesting that they'll make it so the state pension isn't taxable income. It was basically saying we'll pretend to stop punching in the face if you vote for us. But it's actually worse than that. I'll tell you what, Johnny, that Mel Stride thing this morning, so this new pension policy. So the national service policy they came up with on Sunday, as I've already said, didn't get a lot of support even amongst right-wing commentators. Now, this pension thing is also being attacked by a lot of right-wing commentators because they're pointing out that it's another gut punch to young people, which is weird. It's really weird to see right-wing commentators even mention young people. They don't normally do that. But so they believe, at any rate, such was the disaster of this national service policy that basically anything which now looks like it's a kick in the balls for young people is being seized upon, because that's what it is. Because if, for example, you reduce the tax liability of pensioners, what you're saying is that young people need to pay more or work harder for it. So it's absolutely insane. But there is a danger that people get carried away, because please remember, there are millions of people in this country who are programmed to vote Conservative. Like, we're all politically engaged, right? That's why you're here. We're looking at social media a lot. We're looking at political news a lot. You're listening to idiots like me talking a lot. And we're sort of going, oh, this is an absolute disaster for the Tories. Absolute disaster. What was he doing calling the election in the pissing rain? What was he doing going to the birthplace of the Titanic? Is he crazy? And we're looking at this and we're imagining all the ordinary voters in the country looking at this and going, oh, they can't possibly vote for this. Oh, yeah, the polls, yeah, they'll be finished. But please remember, most people who are going to vote in this election aren't really following the news. They're not really following it. They might see the odd headline as they walk to pay for their petrol on the newspaper stand. Most don't like politics. They know it's important. That's why they're going to vote in the general election. But most of the people who are going to vote in the general election, they might not know that Rishi Sunak decided to associate himself with the Titanic. They might not know that he went to Wales and appeared inadvertently, didn't mean it, to poke fun at the fact they didn't qualify for the Euros. They might not know that a Tory MP defected to Reform UK last night. They might not know that Tory MPs are really mad because it looks like Sunak only called the election to avoid a coup. They don't know any of this stuff. They don't know that Tory councillors dressed up as factory workers to try and pull one over on the public. They don't know about this. All they know is country's not going great. Things are clearly not going great. They get that. So they're probably not very enamoured of the Conservatives. But they're not really, there's loads of voters who are not really going to think about anything until the last few days before the election. So all of this disaster in the news, it'll feed through to some people. It will feed through to some people. But all of these disasters in the news will not be cutting through to a lot of the public, a lot of those voters, which is why there's two things I'm going to suggest that we can all do. Every single one of us here, if you're in Britain, that is, not everyone is, every single one of us can actually do. So I'm just looking something up because someone just asked a question, which I will get to in one moment. The first is, of course, promote tactical voting. So we've got the stop the Tories .vote behind me there. And I don't just mean to use that yourself to find out what is your tactical vote. I mean, you will know other people. Like, you might not want to vote tactically. I mean, I'm not here to tell people how to vote. You may be very, very partisan and you may go, no, I'm going to vote for my party regardless. It's not my fault. The electoral system's crap. But you may know other people who are not partisan and who are prepared to use their vote tactically. Make sure they know about it as well. Make sure also that they know that there will be other tactical voting sites. Only this one is provably accurate. And the Tories will be putting deliberately inaccurate ones out there to trap people. Don't Google it. Stop the Tories.vote. It doesn't have the advice on yet, but it will at the end, by the end of this week. And you don't need it yet. You only need it when it's time to start voting, which will be late June for those doing postal votes. Second thing everyone can do, this second thing people can do, and this is even if you don't want to vote tactically, everyone will know. I know some people, and I will be doing this. Everyone knows some people who are eligible to vote, but you know they're probably not going to vote. They're probably, can't be bothered, doesn't make any difference. Right. Help them, make it easy for them, because all they have to do is put a tick in a box. But at the moment, they have to make sure they're registered, sit down with them and make sure they're registered. I would even say don't even bother with the voter ID. I would say help them register for postal voting. I think you have to do it with a physical form. So get the form for them, get them to fill it in, and you post it to the council for them. So do that. Find people you know, whether it's at work, at home, friends, whatever. Do it for as many people as you can. Make sure they're registered. Make sure that if you think to yourself, then even if they say, oh, I might vote, yeah, that means they're not going to vote. Get them to do postal voting. Get them registered. You do all the legwork for them. And then a couple of weeks before the postal vote should arrive, tell them to fill it in and you will post it for them. So they don't have to do anything. They just have to fill in a form, which you will give them to register for postal voting. Then you will post it for them. Then they just have to, when the ballot arrives, you keep saying, oh, is it arrived? Yeah, it's right. Right. Direct them to stop the Tories.vote. Because if they're not bothered about voting, they're not bothered about who they're voting for. Direct them to stop the Tories.vote and say, you fill it in. Yeah, I'm not going to look at it. It's your secret vote. You do what you like. And seal it in the envelope. And then you take the envelope and you go and post it for them. That's what I would do. Right, a couple of super chats to go through. Anthony Gibson, £2, thank you. Phil, what do I think of Labour shorts? I'll tell you what I think. I'm just going to put them up now. I think they get hardly any views, is what I think, because they don't do it properly. I'm not doing it properly, and I'm getting loads more views than they are on my shorts. And my shorts I still haven't got a strategy for them. And Ivan Ambrose, £10 super chats, thank you very much. It's now very significant that 121 business leaders are now supporting Labour. Yeah, these are the ones who've so supporting Labour that they've decided to put their names to a letter. Oh dear Tories, let's get out the smallest violin in the universe. Well, I mean, this is ultimately it, isn't it? Gary Arnold saying that I'm getting a postal vote there. I mean, but so what we do is we often, when we're sort of urging people the importance of voting, we're urging them to vote. But it's also important to remember, we're probably talking to a lot of people who are going to vote anyway. If you're so politically engaged that you're watching a political discussion, you're probably going to vote anyway. But you will know people who aren't. You will know. I know people who, if I don't take action, won't vote. And I want you to think about this as well. In every election, there's always like one or two seats that are really, and they can be really close. Sometimes it can be a dead heat. And then you sort of draw lots or flip a coin to decide the winner. It's literally randomized, right? It's entirely up to the returning officer what you do. I'm still amazed that no returning officer has ever ordered a duel to the death, but never mind. It's probably uncivilized. So imagine the scenario. This is what I would say. Imagine the scenario. Imagine that you've got a group of friends and they're not really going to vote. And you persuade 5 of them to get registered and to do postal voting, and you make it easy for them. And when the postal votes arrived, you get them to fill it in and you post them, right? You've directed them to stop the Tories vote because you're in a constituency where tactical vote matters. And on Friday, the 5th of July, you are watching the results come in. It might actually be quite late on the 5th of July, because let's say in your constituency, it's so tight, there has to be a recount. And then after that recount, the final numbers are revealed and the Tory candidate lost by 3 votes. And you'll be there going, I got 5 people to vote against them. You will have done that. You will have cost that Tory MP, that Tory candidate, their seat in the Commons. That is how I would think of this. And do not look at the 2019 results and go, oh no, because there was thousands in it. No, this year there's going to be a lot of what were safe Tory seats are actually going to be very tight. So that's the way I would think of it. At this point, I would not urge people to vote, because if I'm talking to people, I think you already are going to vote. I would urge people, everyone here, find someone who that you're close to. I don't just mean find random strangers on the street, because then they'll just vote Tory out of spite. But I would just say, Phil, be very careful. Are you helping people with postal votes and directing them to stop the Tories? That might be considered political campaigning. New law affects this. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. I'm directing people to stop the Tories vote, and I'm directing people to help their friends use postal voting. I'm not in breach of any law. Postal votes are now time limited. Yes, that's right as well. So if you register for postal voting this election, it will have actually, I think Labour will change that. But at the moment, as things stand, it will it'll have lapsed for the next election. But Labour are going to have to, because all of this stuff is designed to help. Actually, ironically, because here's another thing. Ironically, actually, most people who fill in a postal vote Conservative, because we have the stats on that. But what we're trying to do is massively beef up the number of people using postal votes. Maybe then it swings the other way. Your vote will always count to the national percentage. There is that as well, but the national percentage, it's really just bragging rights. If the Tories are actually beaten down to less than 20% or something, but that, yeah, I mean, I would always say, even if you are in a really safe seat, do go and vote anyway. But if you think it's a safe Tory seat, you may not be right. There probably are, in reality, a few genuinely safe Tory seats. But I would say 2 things. First of all, you don't necessarily know what they are. Because even if you think you're really good with the polling, the pollsters have so many difficulties this year. There's so many things that will throw their model out that we really cannot treat them as sacrosanct. The other thing I would say is, even if you do end up with a Tory MP, right? I'll show you the difference. A Tory MP with a 10,000 majority, they feel quite comfortable, right? They'll do what they like. They'll carry on as they like. A Tory MP that wins by 500 votes, they're going to pay attention to their constituency, because that's too close for comfort. So the closer you can make the contest, even if you end up with a Tory MP, if you want that Tory MP to focus on local issues, basically MPs who only win by small margins pay a lot more attention to their constituencies than the ones that win by larger margins. But anyway, it says when Labour get into power, they'll have to tinker with a lot of things, especially with the economy. Getting that running properly would solve a lot of problems. Then there's the NHS and EU to deal with. Well, there is, but I mean, as a lot of people point out, how do you get the economy turning around again? Because they're gonna, I mean, they have to, but at the same time, there's their hands are tied behind their back with Brexit and various other things as well. And the thing is, as people point out, the economy is like an oil tanker. It takes a long time to turn around. In 1997, if you look at the way the economy grew in Labour's first term last time, it really powered up. But that was helped by the fact the economy was already going in the right direction under the Conservatives. It just wasn't going quickly enough. So Labour basically turbocharged it, but they didn't have to change the direction. Whereas this time they have to change the direction before they can power it up. So it is going to be quite worrying, but we will see. Alan's saying, I find the reasoned moderate voice works. I don't care who you vote for, just vote. That's my attitude. Absolutely 100%. I don't even hear, I don't say who to vote for. I mean, people know I vote Labour, but I don't say, I just want people to vote. I just want people to vote, as many people to vote as possible, because I believe that if everyone votes, the Tories wouldn't win. I don't believe there's ever a majority that want a Conservative government. There may not be a majority want a Labour government either, but I think a majority would want a progressive government. The Tories in my constituency were 42% higher than Labour in my constituency. Please fix. So I'm assuming that in your constituency, Labour would be the natural challenger rather than the Lib Dems, because in terms of the tactical vote, remember, it's just about getting rid of the Tories, not promoting a particular party. But at the end of the day, if that was the case in 2019, it's already been fixed. The Tories fixed it themselves. You know, we've had in this Parliament. This is the worst Parliament of my entire life. I thought the last Parliament was really bad. I mean, think about the last Parliament. It only lasted 2.5 years, and it was utterly chaotic. Brexit just, I mean, like what, and yet they've somehow made it worse. The actual reality of Brexit and the fact that the Tories, because of Brexit, cannot appoint anyone with brains, has made this Parliament and it's on its arse, and in its dying days. This Parliament is about to end. At the end of this week, it's going to end. It's on its arse, and we've ended up with a situation where Reform UK have got 2 bloody MPs. It's utterly mad. Should be more like Oz then, Phil. The problem is, I don't think the political will exist to make voting compulsory in this country. So we just have to encourage it rather than force it. Why do we think Rishi has been running a presidential style campaign when polling below his party? Purely to keep away. I don't think he is running a presidential campaign. I think he's just running an ultra micromanaged campaign. Rishi Sunak has a problem in that he can't engage with the public. He always makes a mess of it. He makes a mess of it every time. We've seen it last week. We've seen it over the last few months. We've seen it over the last year and a half. Rishi Sunak is a disaster area when it comes to talking to the public. So he can't talk to the public, but at the same time, he can't hide away because he's behind. So he has to persuade people to vote for him. So he has to give the impression of engaging with the public for lots of the stuff to be reported in the news, at the same time as not actually engaging with the public. So what you end up with is this weird stage managed farce. It's theatre. It's just pure theatre, but without any audience participation. And it's, but because, I mean, it would be difficult enough. It's a difficult enough trick to pull off anyway. But because his entire team are, well, put it this way, they're either stupid or they are like, I'll tell you something. So, and after the first couple of days campaigning, an article was published on the Daily Mail website. The headline, I was reading it again this morning. The headline is there a double agent in CCHQ? Now, because it's the Mail and they're a bit thick, they don't mean a double agent, because a double agent would be someone who really is working for the Tories. What they actually mean is just a straightforward agent, don't they? They mean, are there Labour and Lib Dem agents working at CCHQ? And the thing is, it's really hard because you automatically dismiss it. Oh, don't be silly. It's just a joke, isn't it? But actually, I don't know, because the alternative is that the Conservative Party, the most successful political party by far in British history, has decided to spend a lot of money hiring complete idiots. Because one of those two things must be true. Either CCHQ does have Labour and Lib Dem activists secretly working for them, or they've paid a load of money to hire idiots, cretins, imbeciles. I can see, I can't see, this campaign is such a disaster area. It's so bad, and it can't all be Sunak's fault. It wasn't Sunak who decided to go and visit the Titanic's birthplace. It was him who decided to ask people in Wales if they're looking forward to the Euros. It wasn't, but it wasn't the actual organisation of the campaign. That's down to the strategists, not him. Other people just fill his diary up for him and he just goes and does them. You say if Starmer didn't push for Labour pushing the second referendum, Labour would have been in government. Oh, you talk some shit, don't you? And the other thing is, Labour's policy, this thing about it's Keir Starmer's, it wasn't. It was Corbyn's policy. I keep saying this. I've had to say this twice this week already. In the 2019 Labour Party conference, the conference were all ready to vote for Keir Starmer's proposal. Right? It was already long in the making. Corbyn had promised to do it a year earlier and he'd lied, right? He'd lied. That is why Labour were tanking in the polls, because he'd promised to do a thing and lied. So then Jeremy Corbyn comes out and he says, oh, I don't want you to vote for this motion. It's actually going to make things really hard for him. They go, oh, Jeremy, you're brilliant. All right, we'll not vote for it then. So Labour's position was 100% Jeremy Corbyn's. He's the leader. He decides every policy, right? And he was also someone who deliberately sabotaged the reasoned Brexit policy that Labour were having. It's all down on him. And frankly, I am absolutely sick to the back teeth. The only thing that winds me up, I'm quite a calm person. The only thing that winds me up is people who will not take responsibility. They will not take responsibility. You insisted, people like you insisted, that Jeremy Corbyn would be brilliant and sweep Labour to power and we'd have this marvellous socialist utopia. We didn't get it. We have got... How many people have died because we made Jeremy Corbyn leader? How many people have died? You should feel ashamed. People that did this should feel ashamed. Anyway. Putting a £5 super chat, thank you. I think Leverdow mixed up his papers with Yes Minister scripts and is too embarrassed to admit it, so I hope no one notices. Well, the thing is, in Yes Minister, there was strategy behind it all, though. It was all sort of... Because it was real politics. Like, Yes Minister, it's not just a comedy. It was actually real... there were politicians at the time said, this is freakishly like real life. So it was a funny take on what was actually happening. A bit like the thick of it, but Yes Minister sort of really gets to the heart of political decision making rather than just the thick of it was more about the old spin doctors, wasn't it, under Labour? But it, you really should watch these programs. I said yesterday, Yes Minister. The reason why I got interested in politics from a really stupidly young age was because of Yes Minister. I was only a young lad when that was on telly, but I was fascinated. So I was interested in politics really, really young. But there we go. So, we've run out of time then. So yes, we'll have to call it there. But as I say, I think the message we need to get across, because we're here now, the election is here. Doesn't matter why it's here. Doesn't matter if it was always part of the plan. Doesn't matter if it was triggered because Rishi Sunak was going to face a coup. It's here. The election's going to happen. Nothing can stop it. Nothing can stop it now. It's done. It's happening. 4th of July. We just need to make sure. But before the 4th of July, there are other deadlines. There's the deadlines to register. There's the deadlines to get postal voting sorted out. Sort that out now. Not yourselves. I'm assuming all of you have already sorted that out. Anyone you know, encourage them to do it and make it easy for them. Like sit down with them at the computer and say, right, let's get registered. Postal voting. You can do a thing, you'll get a form, right? If you can't print it out, it'll be sent to you, I think, is the process it works. I can't remember. It's a few years since I've done it. I think the count, you'll do it online, but then, because you have to physically sign a form, I think. So get that. And then a few days later, has the form arrived? Get them to fill it in. You take it and post it for them. And then when the 2 weeks before the election, just say to them, has your postal ballot arrived yet? And if it has, say, can you fill it in? I'll come round tonight and then I'll post it for you. Just make it as easy as possible. Do it for one person. But if you can do it for two people, do it for two. Do it for as many people as you know that you're friendly with, whether it's at work or wherever, that you're friendly with. Don't like bother people, because then, as I say, they'll just vote Tory out of spite. But you will know at least one apathetic voter. Get one apathetic voter to vote, and it could make the difference. But anyway, there we go. Thanks for coming on, everyone. Have a very good day. I'm sure you'll all have a better day than Rishi Sunak's about to. I can't wait to see what's going to come out today. Thanks for coming on. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.